Well, I want to share 4 specific tips to really grow the cosmetic component of your practice, in particular for that millennial group, but they really extend to all generations. But in particular to the millennial group, because I think we're about to see massive interest from that particular group. Number 1, make sure that you have the cosmetic skills on the shelf. That's a term that I've heard used in different continuing education different continuing education programs. But step 1, make sure you have the skills on the shelf. And what that basically means is make sure you've participated in the kind of training you want to take to advance your skill sets so that you can confidently present these options to your patients, knowing full well you can deliver what you're presenting. If you don't have the skills on the shelf, what I find with most dentists is they don't present it confidently, and then as a result, it ends up kind of just tailing off because the patient doesn't really get the perception that you can help them with this. So if it's been a while, maybe you've been taking your CE in other areas. Maybe you want to revisit some coursework in the area of cosmetic dentistry. There's some wonderful programs out there, some hands-on programs, some live patient courses. I'm going to strongly recommend my longtime friend, Dr. David Hornbrook. Most of you will recognize the name David Hornbrook. David's a practicing dentist in San Diego. He's not only accredited by the AACD, but he's a fellow of the AACD, was one of the early fellows in AACD, and he's a brilliant educator. He gives a program in Utah at Roseman Dental School where you bring a patient and you bring an assistant, you bring a patient, and you do a 10-unit upper anterior porcelain veneer case. It's just a fabulous course. Dr. Mark Montgomery is his co-director. Dee Reed is one of the instructors. Cannot think of a better place for you to get some great cosmetic continuing education. So number 1, make sure you've got your skills on the shelf and advance them as far as you can because it's going to serve you very well. Number 2, use whitening as a gateway service. Whitening in your practice. So whitening is a gateway service because when you whiten people's teeth, they are interested in what's next. So imagine some of these millennials in your patient that you present whitening to, whether it be chairside, take-home trays, or maybe an over-the-counter product like Go. I like the Ultradent Go product. Now we whiten their teeth, and when you see them 6 months later for their hygiene appointment, they say, "Doc, I love the color of my teeth, but what about this? What about that? What about this?" So if whitening has kind of been dormant in your practice, it's time to reactivate that. It's time to make that a really important part of your practice because whitening, growing your whitening component will create more interest in cosmetic dentistry. You might be surprised how many veneer cases you do start out as a whitening case or adult orthodontics. You know how many times we do Invisalign, but it started out as a whitening case. Now they have the color of the teeth that they want, but they want to now have them in the right position. So whitening, get serious about it. And there's no reason why any dental office, any of our listeners, couldn't be doing one whitening procedure a day in your practice. One whitening procedure a day. There's no reason. And little more data on this, not every office offers whitening, but for those that do, the average number of cases that they do each month is 1.2 whitening cases a month. 1.2. Woohoo! Did anyone hear my sarcasm on that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you're working 4 days a week and you're working 17 days a month, there's no reason why you couldn't do 17 whitening cases a month. That'd be a very realistic goal. And believe me, your practice is different after 6 months. After 6 months, you do 1 case a month. We've got 6.
1 case a day.
1 case a day. Well, no, I'm saying if you're a practice that does 1 case a month,
Yeah.
after 6 months, you've got 6 cases.
Right.
Versus if we do 17 a month, Aaron, how many cases do we have after 6 months?
102.
102. You think a practice might be different if it had 102 people thrilled with the color of their teeth instead of 6?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you bet. So anyway, get serious about growing whitening in your practice. Number 3, brush off your show and tell skills. Show and tell skills. And what I mean by that is make sure you're using photography in your practice so that you can, especially after photos, to let people know what's available in your office. You've all heard me talk about the importance of photography, and it seems like photography kind of has a way of, the camera has a way of kind of living in a drawer and not getting pulled out often enough. So make sure that you're revisiting how important it is to get before and afters in your cosmetic. Oftentimes we get the afters, but we forgot to get the befores. And now make sure any photos that we show in your office, we've got patient permission to show those photos. So make sure that you have patient permission to use the photos for patient education and for marketing reasons. But a really cool thing to do is simply build a library that you can do digitally of before and after cases that you can put on a tablet, and you can show people, hey, here's how we've helped people improve their smile. The other thing that you can do is you can take, and I would have those you could take yourself. Those befores and afters you can take yourself. But I would also encourage you to have a nice selection of after photos that you enlarge and have those as your office artwork. After, not before and after, but only after photos. And if you do that, a couple tips on that. I would have those professionally taken because I want to enlarge those and have it taken by a professional photographer. And if you do those, make sure that you've got both men and women represented, but also different ages and different ethnicity represented. So make sure we have patients in different age groups, make sure we have different ethnic groups represented in those photos, because basically what we're communicating with this artwork in your office is that a beautiful smile is appropriate for men and women of any age. And if you'd like to see more millennials, make sure that at least some of those photos represent that millennial generation.
That point that Gary just made is so important because what we notice is doesn't matter what marketing we do, unless you are communicating to the patients that you see someone who looks like him or her in terms of age, in terms of skin color, they might assume you might not be a good dentist for them. So a lot
it's
of
subconscious
times,
too. It's a subconscious thing. It's not conscious. They don't feel, it's a subconscious thing that they don't see themselves.
Right. So you have to make it a point to show them people like them who are your patients. So pictures with such patients, beautiful smiles with such patients. So I think it's really important that you do that.
Yeah. Now, tip number 4, dial in your marketing. In particular, dial in your organic SEO. Make sure you are found on page 1 for all the different ways patients would type in cosmetic dentistry or adult orthodontics or whiter teeth or straighter, whiter teeth, all the different ways. And if you're curious about, well, I don't even know all the different ways I can say that, you can query Google. So you can query Google, and ask Google, what are the 50 most common keywords and phrases in my area when a patient is looking for cosmetic dentistry? And they'll give you the answer. And then make sure your marketing company dials that in your organic SEO, in your website, in your coding of your website, in all the related components, so that when someone types in those terms, you show up on page 1. So really, and I know I make it sound easy. I don't want to suggest this is easy, but if you break it down into its pieces, this is very manageable. Okay, so remember, 67% of millennials have photoshopped their smiles in Instagram. That tells you that they want beautiful smiles.